What's up, everybody? Mike Dussault, Evan Lazar, Patriots.com. We are back here. We got through the draft, Evan. We got through free agency. We're at a point now, Patriots roster just about filled. And so we're going to take a look today at a few positions of interest to us. A little bit stacked, a little bit of depth. How's it all going to play out? We're going to take a look now. 4 positions. And we're not going to waste any time, Evan. We're going to start with what everybody wants. The wide receivers, right? That's what everybody comes for. You want to know the big playmakers. That's what the Patriots need. Now, Evan, I think I just want to point out, some changes. JuJu Smith-Schuster obviously being one that we kind of swapped out for Jacoby Myers. But when you look at this group, it looks a little bit light to me, maybe?
Yeah, usually they carry about 9 guys into training camp, so I could see another receiver being added here. Maybe Lynn Bowden gets brought back at some point once they go through some roster tinkering. But I do feel like when you look at the first 4 names on that left column and then maybe the 2 rookies that they drafted at the end of the draft, those are the guys that you're talking about making this roster. I don't think anybody's going to sign at this point of the offseason and really push somebody like that off the roster. But before we get to the 2 rookies and how it's all going to fit together, I'm really looking forward to seeing Tyquan Thornton out there, because you look at Tyquan and you think about the speed, you think about the vertical ability, even to stretch the field horizontally with Bill O'Brien now as the offensive coordinator. How is he going to look with an offensive coordinator who's really going to utilize him properly and give him advantageous angles to use that speed down the field? I'm hoping, I think they're hoping, that that's going to be what propels Tyquan Thornton to a true year 2 leap, is that he's going to have a lot more help from alignment, from motion, from different tricks of the trade to get him off the line of scrimmage and get him up the field. So that's, I think, the optimistic view, is that hopefully Tyquan Thornton is going to be a lot more involved and be a difference maker for the Patriots. But then we also have to talk about these 2 guys.
Let me jump in, because I'm going to add one more guy into this equation, which is Mike Gesicki. He's a tight end, but kind of a receiver too. So I'd almost consider him, when we're talking about this group, a guy that can play outside. So I think he's a little bit in the mix. But let's talk about the 2 rookies, who I just love. In the 6th round, you took a chance on a couple of guys. I think they're a little bit different. I mean, Douglas, outstanding returner, explosive. And Boutte, we know, had a high ceiling coming out of high school, flamed out a little bit down there at LSU later on. But both guys have some potential, and I think when you look at this group, you can see at least one or two of those guys fitting in and complementing these top 4 nicely.
They're going to carry 5, so there's a spot for one of these 2
Nelson
guys.
Aguilar.
For sure. And I think with Kayshon Boutte, the interesting thing about him is that he has a little bit of that skill set that I think they've been going for with guys like JuJu and Kendrick Bourne, even that yak ability, right? That explosiveness, a little bit more of a bigger, thicker frame than a Wes Welker, a Julian Edelman type, but still somebody that I think is going to play inside quite often. And Demario Douglas is a totally different type of player, which I think is what makes it interesting, because you have really a traditional receiver, I'd say, in Kayshon Boutte, who's going to play inside, outside, and do a couple different things. But Demario Douglas really has gadget player potential, somebody that can essentially bring what Marcus Jones brings to the table, but full time to the offense and not have to split between 3 phases. So I'm interested to see how they use him. I think he's someone that screens, end arounds, verticals, obviously. He's going to be able to add that. McCole Hardman is somebody that I've kind of comped him to type of element, where he's not necessarily that traditional going to catch 90 passes type of receiver, but when he touches the football, he's a chance to take it to the house on pretty much every play.
We got to mention Trey Nix. I mean, star of last year's OTA minicamp. Maybe he has some big plays this year, but certainly coming into his 3rd year of experience, I mean, he's been around. So let's move on, Evan, to the 2nd position group, which is cornerback. Now, a lot more guys and names on this list, and for good reason. And we know we got outside guys, inside guys. Of course, the highlight here, Christian Gonzalez, 1st round pick. Both Evan and I loved him. Re-signing Jonathan Jones this year, a huge play for bringing back some leadership in the secondary. You lost Devin McCourty. He's a guy that can play all over. We know Jalen Mills might even put a safety beside his name. He's played a little bit of safety as well. And then we've got some of the undersized guys. Miles Bryant can play some safety. Jack Jones got some experience. Marcus Jones feels like a slot to me. Couple rookies on that side, reserve players. There'll be some competition in there. What stands out to you, Evan, with this group?
All right, let's do a little exercise here. So we got what I'm going to call an FCB, field corner, right? So he's going to be the player that's going to play with the most space, right? And this right here, this is going to be your BCB. That's your boundary corner. This is somebody that's going to cover X receivers, the bigger guys on the outside, and play more into the boundary. So now the question is who's going to be the nickel? And I really think that you have to look at Marcus Jones, the best chance to be your nickel. So when you start to talk about how you're going to fill out behind that. I think Jack Jones is somebody that could probably play boundary or field, depending on where injuries and things end up stacking up. But I really feel like these two guys are safeties. I really think that they're going to be sort of those slot safety corner hybrids, and Mills in particular stands out to me as somebody that is going to play a lot on tight ends moving forward, and maybe be that man coverage guy on tight ends to free up a guy like Kyle Duggar to now go and play the middle of the field and be a little bit more of that rover type that Devin McCourty was. So I really love how this stacks together now, though, because you think about the opponents the Patriots play. Let's just take Miami, for instance, because I think that's the easiest one always to translate. You have Jonathan Jones for Tyreek Hill, you have Marcus Jones for Jalen Waddle, and then Christian Gonzalez has got that true X guy, whoever they end up filling out there in Miami. So you have to love how this comes together now with Christian Gonzalez bringing that size and bringing that athleticism to the outside.
And just to point out, I mean, the two rookies, end of the draft, you don't have high expectations, but both Speed and Bolden, big guys with a lot of speed.
I'm going to put this next to those two.
Fast, both of them.
Special
so
teams.
We'll watch them too in camp and see what they have to bring. So let's get rid of those and let's move on to our third position, which is tackles. So we've divided it up between tackles as well as interior guys, and there will be some crossover as well. So, this is a position, Evan, that I think a lot of people were expecting a high round draft pick on. The Patriots seem like they focus more in free agency by signing Riley Reif, who started a bunch of games. Calvin Anderson from the Broncos, who was here back in 2019 as a rookie free agent, has had some time starting at left tackle. And then Andrew Stuber, didn't even see him last year. Connor McDermott, we signed him, former Jet, that started a number of games. So there is some crossover, like I said here, but just at least speaking to the tackles, I think for me, Evan, the big question is, are we going to stick with Trent Brown on the left side? Riley Reif, right tackle all last year. Is he the right side guy? Still some opportunity for some competition here with the younger guys. I think that's a little bit of the X factor.
Yeah, I think they turned over some of that depth and maybe are a little bit better than they were this time last year in terms of guys that are going to come in and play on the right side, I think, potentially. But I also look at Calvin Anderson as someone that has the athleticism, certainly, to play on the left side. And his combine a couple years ago now obviously blew it out of the water. That's kind of what put him on the NFL map. So I think if you're looking for somebody to bump Trent back over to right, it's Calvin Anderson having a big camp and looking the part as a starting left tackle. If not, then I think you're looking at Riley Reif and Connor McDermott contending for that right tackle spot. And I really feel like Trent Brown's got to be locked in at this point. You didn't draft anybody high in the draft. He's the one carryover that you're really confident in. And I don't necessarily think you are going to push him off the roster now. I think that there was some thought that his contract and what he's due, maybe he's somebody that is a surprise cut or surprise trade. I think after the way that they approach the position in the offseason, he's going to be a starter and not going anywhere for the Patriots.
All right, let's kill these and go over to the interior offensive line. And, of course, there's a little bit of crossover, like we said. Now, we know what we had last year, which was pretty obvious: center, right guard, and left guard. Now, we assume that that's going to come back. We had James Ferentz, who was one of the top backups. But we had 3 additions this year in the draft. I'm going to lean over here on your side, Evan, a little bit. Now, all of them kind of have interior guard bodies as well. Now, I think the big thing, for which everybody's wondering, Sidy Sow played a little left tackle early on in his college career. Looks a lot like Michael Onwenu, as do all of those guys. But with Sidy Sow, there is some potential. I know we just said not sure they drafted a tackle, but he might have some potential.
Yeah, he might have some tackle potential. He's got the length. He checks the measurables to play tackle, so maybe they do try him out. What I really wonder is if they can't solidify that right tackle spot or one of the tackle spots next to Trent Brown in training camp, is if Mike Onwenu kicks back outside to right tackle and one of these rookies factors in at right guard. I would even throw Chasen Hines in there as well as somebody that has that prototypical Patriots right guard body type. Now, Jake Andrews is a center. Okay, I really don't think he's going to play guard. But these two guys can play guard. Hines can play a little bit of guard. So maybe if push comes to shove and they get out to training camp and right tackle is still an issue, Mike Onwenu kicking back outside to right tackle, I'm sure he would love to do that in a contract year, get that money. And then you have one of these guys come in and play right guard. I think that's in play. I don't think that's plan A. I don't even think it's plan B. It's probably like plan C or D. But I think it's in play just you have to get the best 5 guys out there. And if one of these guys proves that they're one of the best 5 that you have on the roster, then you reconfigure things and you make it work.
All right, last position group here we're going to take a look at is running back. And of course, this is a little bit different. We lost Damien Harris to the Buffalo Bills, so there has been a little bit of turnover. But of course, Ramondre Stevenson just having a breakout year last year. He can catch the ball, he can run the ball, he can do it all. He's a playmaker, and that's certainly what they need more of. Ty Montgomery played just one game, and I think he's a little bit of an unknown this year as maybe a third down back experience. I thought last year in Camp Evan, he looked pretty good when they were running that wide zone stuff.
He did.
The big question, though, I think is, of course, free agent James Robinson coming out, second year removed from an Achilles injury, played with the Jets a little bit last year after being traded over there from the Jags. But then you have last year's 2 guys that I just think this is the real question, Evan, is how do these guys develop? Are they ready to step into a big role?
This is the year for both these guys, and in particular, Pierre Strong. You drafted him in the 4th round. Remember Damien Harris's career, James White's career, even Shane Vereen to an extent didn't exactly play a ton as a rookie and then came on in his 2nd season. I think Pierre Strong has gone through the typical Patriot rookie redshirt for a running back, and now let's see what he brings to the table in year 2. I go back to that Arizona game. It was only 5 carries, but 5 for 75 or something like that, where it really seemed that speed and that ability to accelerate and get to the 2nd and 3rd level of the defense. I do think they're hoping that he can catch some passes as well. Ty Montgomery looked like the most natural pass-catching back they had in camp last year until the injuries. So he's somebody that I think that they're still looking at in that role. Has that wide receiver experience, has obviously catch passes out of the backfield, but we can do this like we did with corners. I think we have RB1 here, right? And then the question then becomes, who becomes that RB2, that backup early down role? I think that that's hopefully going to be James Robinson. And then I think what the team really wants is this to be your 3rd down guy, right? And that sort of being the committee, and then you have maybe a 4th makes the roster. Usually they carry 4 running backs. Based off of that sort of equation, I think Kevin Harris has the best chance, right, to be that next guy, because he's somebody that can back up these 2 guys, and then you have the passing game back in Pierre Strong playing his role. Could it be Ty Montgomery? Absolutely. But if you're looking at another back to come in that can be that early down workhorse, it seems like Kevin Harris fits that mold the best out of Montgomery, Harris, and Taylor, because I think those 3 guys I highlighted are not necessarily locks for James Robinson. They didn't pay him like a lock, but I think he's going to be on this team. And certainly Ramondre and Pierre Strong are locks.
All right, that's going to do it for Evan and I. These are the 4 positions we just found the most intriguing. Now, we're going to get a look at some of these guys over the next few weeks, OTAs, and then mini camp, which will be supposed to be 3 straight days of practice. We'll see how many of those days we actually get to see. But certainly, these are the positions we'll be watching. Which ones will you guys be watching? Let us know in the comments. And of course, we'll have plenty more content coming from all those practices to let you guys know what we saw out there on the field.